Worldwide big game hunter Wayne Pocius has hunted whitetails extensively throughout North America, including 28 consecutive years of deer camps with his father in Pennsylvania. Wayne will show you how he hunts the prolific and challenging whitetail deer in the South and in the North with bow and rifle. Hunting around the world, from Alaska to Australia, from the Americas to Africa, Asia, and Europe. Sportsman on Film presents Wayne Pocius, hunting whitetails, north and south, with bow and rifle.
Hi, I'm Wayne Pocius. I love to hunt whitetails. I love to hunt them just about all over North America. I like to hunt them with a bow and with a rifle. We're set up here in the South for the opening of the archery season. Tomorrow we're going to do some pre-hunting scouting. We're going to try to locate the bedding and feeding areas, primarily the feeding areas first. After we've located the feeding areas, we're going to try and locate the areas that the deer are bedding in. That's the area that they're traveling to and from to eat. We're also going to look for some signs of pre-rut. We're going to look for some tree rubs, we're going to look for some scrapes, we're going to look for some sign of activity on what the deer are doing at the moment. We're going to be also very conscious at that time of the wind. We're going to be also conscious of any noise that we have coming to and from our hunting areas, and we're also going to be conscious of where we leave our scent when we do our scouting. We're going to talk about wind first. I feel that wind is one of the most important factors in hunting whitetail, or any animal. Whitetail basically depend on their sense of smell, their sense of hearing, then their sense of sight for protection. So wind is very important. If you hunt an area and the wind is blowing from you toward the game that you're hunting, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to see that game because they're going to smell you far before they ever hear you or see you. The next important thing would be noise. Hearing is another one of their primary factors, and noise is very important. You have to be very careful coming into an area that you don't park too close to the area you want to hunt, bang your doors, rattle your change, carry thermoses, things in that nature, or wear noisy clothing such as this nylon jacket. We wouldn't want to wear a jacket like this when we're doing some preliminary scouting or even hunting. The third thing is our scent. We have to be very careful that an area that we're scouting, we're not going to be hunting for at least a day. We don't want to drag our scent through the area and alert the deer that humans have been through there unless it's a normal pattern for humans to walk that area. Most of the areas that deer are going to choose to eat in bed are away from humans. And if we track our scent around the area, they're going to become aware and they'll probably change their bedding area for that day, and that's not going to really help us. Clothing definitely should be dark and help to conceal your shape or form and sort of match the plant material that you're hiding behind. I don't really believe that total concealment or total camouflage is as necessary as proper wind direction and proper scent. I believe if you hide your scent, you hide yourself as best as possible and pay attention to the wind, the animals are virtually not going to notice you or see you. It's not important that you have everything the same or your face be painted. In some areas it is if you're going to be exposed. But if you're hunting out of a tree or out of a blind, it's not really necessary that you be totally camouflaged, but it is necessary that you do have dark clothing or patterned clothing such as this camouflage jacket or something else to break up your shape so that you don't look like a human being standing there or hiding there. The equipment that I use is a compound bow and aluminum arrows. The arrows that I use are orange. They have yellow fletched with a bright iridescent knock. The reason for that is when the deer is looking at the arrow coming at it, it's really only seeing the point of the arrow. And I don't believe it's necessary to have fully camouflaged arrows unless you plan to do a lot of stalking. But if you're in a blind and your arrows are hid behind you, the deer isn't going to see the orange arrow. He's not going to be alerted by the light. The only thing he's going to see coming at him is the point of the arrow, which hopefully he won't see. But the orange with the yellow fletch and the iridescent knock will allow me to see where my hit is. And they're better determine exactly where I'm hitting the animal. Also, I use a 4-bladed surgical steel arrow, broadhead tip. The reason I use the 4 blades is I want as much cutting power as possible to create as much hemorrhaging as I can in the animal. This is a compound bow, 74-pound pull. It's not really necessary that you have 74 pounds to hunt whitetail. Has about a 40% let off, but I'm comfortable with it. It has very good killing range. I've killed animals up to 60 yards with it, and I'm really happy with its performance. You'll also know that I've camouflaged it. Reason for this is the bow will be seen when you're moving in a tree stand to get a shot or coming up out of a blind, and we do not want the sun or any light reflecting off the bow alerting the animal. If the bow was shiny or real shiny, then we'd get that reflection and it would alert that animal and just make him that much more cautious. You'll also notice that I do not use sights. I'm not saying that sights aren't necessary. I really believe that most hunters do use sights. It's just something that I'm not comfortable with. I just have a philosophy about sights that I can compare to a baseball player. A fielder does not need a sight to know whether to throw the ball to first, second base, or home. He just picks up the ball, looks where he has to throw, and throw it. I feel much more comfortable doing that, just picking up, looking at the game, sighting on the game, and then shooting. If you do have sights, you have to be a lot more conscious of your areas, and if you do go into a stand or a tree stand, you're going to have to tape out various areas in your oncoming animal paths so you'll know just about how far the animal is when it's approaching a given area, so you can use that separate pin designating what area you're hunting, what distance the animal is coming from. I just feel more comfortable without any sights. Tomorrow we're going to begin our pre-hunt scouting. We've established that this is one of the primary trails used between the bedding and feeding area. How we've done that is 2 nights ago, we strung a small string across this trail to see if the deer were using it. What we did was we came back last night and strung the string across this trail again, and came back just now and we see the string is broken again. So obviously this is the primary trail that the deer are using between their feeding and bedding areas. As you can see here, there's some droppings that are about 2 days old, and a little further down this trail we'll show you some droppings that were just made last night. Here are those fresh droppings that I mentioned earlier that were just made this morning. When we checked the trail last night, they were not there, and as you can see, they're just hours old. You'll notice that I was walking on the downhill side of the deer trail. What I've been trying to do is keep my scent line away from the deer trail as far as possible and keep it on the downwind side, hoping that if the deer do wander off the trail, they'll pick up my scent trail and then move back to their left on the trail that we want them to go on. What I'm doing is creating a small fake scrape here, and as you can see, I'm saturating it with a doe and buck rut lure, hoping that the buck will stop here under this cedar tree with a low-lying branch. Generally, when a buck does make a scrape, he likes to make a scrape underneath brush or something with low branches so that he can reach up with his horns and tear it up, and he gets a lot of movement out of that. And it's one of the things that they do like to do. You'll find most scrapes along a scrape line near low overhanging branches. What we're doing is supplementing this natural vegetation growth with some cedar to try and create as natural as possible blind. We placed our blind and chosen this area about 25 yards to 30 yards downwind from the area that we created our primary scrape. What we're hoping the deer will do is come in, follow our scent trail up to that scrape, smell the scrape, possibly reach up and fight with the cedar tree a little bit, allowing me enough time to come up out of the blind and get a real good shot on him.
Now to the first day of hunting.
I'm approaching downwind from the blind from the opposite direction I expect the deer to come into our area from. I'm now sprinkling red fox urine all around the blind to help mask my scent. Even though we're downwind from the trail, we still do everything we can to help hide our scent. Once settled, I'm making sure that the proper shooting lanes are clear. The worst thing that can happen is that you get into your blind and there's a stick or something else between you and the area that you expect the deer to travel in. I think that's one of the best buck I've ever gotten a shot at with a bow. Real nice buck. Everything worked perfect. We built our blind downwind from our scent trail that we had set up for the deer to come in. We ran some doe and rut buck lure along the approach trail from the bedding area to what we felt was a feeding area, and we established a false scrape because by some of the sign that we've seen around here and some of the action of the deer, we recognized that they were sort of in the pre-rut stage. And the deer came in just perfect. Everything just worked right on this buck, and we got a real nice buck, as you can see. Most laws require that the animal be tagged immediately after the kill is made. So what we're going to do right now is fill out our tag and tag the animal. We built our stand about 25 to 30 yards from where we established our scent trail and false scrape. When the deer came in, our first shot hit upwards at an angle, striking the spine and lodging in there, dropping the deer in his tracks. Arrows kill by hemorrhaging, so normally we try and get a shot that's just a hair lower than that, but it did take out his lung and wedge into his spine. The deer didn't run, it dropped right on its tracks. Normally we wait 25 to 30 minutes before following an animal hit to allow the arrow's effect and the hemorrhaging effect to take effect and weaken the animal and kill him. This time it didn't happen, so what we did was we took a second shot through the lung area, which completely penetrated the animal to hasten the hemorrhaging effect and kill the deer a little quicker. This is my second arrow that completely penetrated the lung area of the deer, and the deer fell and finally died. That's the position that the arrow remained in. The first arrow that went through his lungs and into his spine broke off when he stumbled, and this is the position that we found it in, and I'm sure the balance of the arrow is still lodged firmly into his spine. We chose this area to build our blind because this is a natural heavy dense cedar cover and a natural bedding area for the deer. The feeding areas are out in that direction. As you can see, there's winter wheat planted out there. There's some high grass fields and oats fields down in the lower section. We've chosen this area because of its dense cedar growth and its southern exposure, and we felt because of the weather conditions today that the deer would be more likely to be on the southern side of the hill, out of the wind, and in this dense cedar.
Wayne was lucky that he was in the right place at the right time, and he'll be the first to tell you that deer don't always cooperate, especially a big buck. But Wayne didn't rely purely on luck. He created his luck through knowledge, effort, and patience. Let's take an abbreviated second look at how he did it. First, he located the bedding and feeding areas of a group of deer. Then he found trails between the two areas and confirmed the recent use of a trail. Along the selected trail, he drug doe scent. And then he created a fake scrape by a low overhanging branch. Within 25 to 30 yards of that fake scrape, he created a blind downwind of the scrape. Early the next morning, Wayne quietly approached his blind downwind and opposite of where he expected the deer to return from feeding. He used a masking scent around the blind, checked his shooting lanes, and waited. A bow hunter using sights would have already measured and memorized the distance of likely shots. When the deer appeared along the trail, Wayne remained as motionless as possible. This is the ultimate test of patience, waiting for the best time to move for the shot after the best deer is in range and before it moves out. Typically, a well-hit deer will run off and the bow hunter will wait about 30 minutes in order to give the deer time to lie down before beginning a systematic search. But in this case, the buck was anchored by the first shot, so Wayne took a second shot to finish the buck quicker. Now we'll jump 2 months in time to Pennsylvania for the beginning of the rifle season, and we'll see the differences in habitat and hunting techniques.
Here we are in Pennsylvania on the opening day of deer season. What I did was went out before first light and was planning on still hunting this area in upper Bradford County. But the leaves were frosted over real heavy, and you can hear it was like walking on eggshells. And what I did was decided to take a stand in this thick cover, figuring the deer would come into it and hopefully try and bed down. And I was fortunate enough at around 8 o'clock this morning of shooting a nice buck. What I did was field dress the buck and tagged it, and being that we're about 3 miles from our camp, I went back and got my four-wheeler and drove into the nearest road and then cut down into the woods to take the buck out that way. It would be almost impossible to drag it that distance. As you can see, we got a real nice fine 8-point buck. What he was doing was following a doe along, and he was in semi-rut stage, smelling a trail, and what I did was waylaid him as he was following her through this brush. It was a real fine deer, better than average that's shot in Pennsylvania. The average deer that's shot in Pennsylvania is less than 2.5 years old, making it a spike, 4-corn, or small 6-point. This is 8 points, making him probably around 3.5 years old, 3.5 to 4. Which is a real nice mature buck, especially for the mountain areas here in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. I was real fortunate to get him. There's about 130,000 buck shot a year in Pennsylvania out of a deer population of 1 million. Pennsylvania, you're only allowed 1 deer in all the combined seasons, whether it's with bow, rifle, or primitive weapon. The law also requires you to immediately tag your animal by attaching the tag to the ear immediately after killing and even before field dressing. So what I did was I filled out my tag here in pen as required and hooked it onto his ear as such, and done that right away. Then I field dressed the deer, and then I set him here by this tree and marked my trail so I could find the trail again with my four-wheeler and walked back out, got the four-wheeler and came back in, and I'm just about ready now to load the deer and go. I use a 30-06 180 grain bullet because it works real well in brush here in Pennsylvania. The rifle that I'm using is a Steyr with a anodized barrel and scope and stock to remove any glare or anything like that. I've completely removed the clip and all the shells now for safety reasons, and now I'm going to give it a try at dragging this animal out of here. Every year, quite a few people get heart attacks dragging the deer out. And what you want, the four-wheeler, the invention of the four-wheeler is just the ideal thing. Back here where we're at, about 3.5 miles from our camp, it'd be virtually impossible for me to drag this thing out by myself to get it all the way back to camp. Without this piece of machinery, I'd be maybe killing myself instead of the deer. What we're going to try and do is load this animal onto the four-wheeler. They're not too light, weighs probably about 135, 140 pounds. Dressed out. Andy, how'd you make out this morning?
Saw a couple doe, no buck though.
No buck?
Nope.
I was lucky enough to get this one here. Why don't you give me a hand hanging it up? What I did was I cut a hole in the tendons, stuck a board through here and tied the rope onto it. Now what we're going to try and do is pull it up here and let it hang for a while. Okay, Andy, how about giving me a hand pulling this up? Try it. Gotta try and get it balanced. That's it. Okay, now you gotta hold it and give me a little slack. As you can see, in Pennsylvania, you have to wear just so much blaze orange. I think it's 250 square inches, which is about what you have in a hat and a vest. You also have to display your license like mine and like Andy has in the middle of your back. That's your general hunting license. Now, Andy also has his fur bearer's license, which also has to be displayed on your back. So in Pennsylvania, if you trap and you hunt, you have to have both licenses displayed right on the middle of your back. And as you can see, I got mine back here, I hope, and Andy's got his back here.
Our weather down in here is kind of damp, and I had these gloves made up for me. A fellow by the name of Dan Bacon made them up for me. And that's all they are. And if I see a deer, I'm able to slip out of him, and they're tied in the back, and they just slip right off. It really helps in the cold weather here. We have, early in the morning, it's rather damp. As the sun comes up, I disregard them and put them in the back. There it is over there.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, that was some shot. I can't believe you hit him.
Yeah, it was running. That's the first deer I really hit running full tilt like that.
Boy, I'll tell you.
Only got one antler on one side, but
man,
it's a nice sized deer, isn't it?
You're not kidding. Big deer, and boy, that was some shot. Look at that. I can't hardly see it from here.
Up there, I took a stand because it was very noisy this morning. There was frost on the ground, so I thought it'd be best if I stood up by that big tree. I saw 21 deer this morning with no horns, and 22nd happened to be the buck. I had my gun down off to the side, and he was looking right at me, so I swung around real easy, and I picked it up, and he took off, and it was pretty hard getting a hold of him. And then I was able to see him through a little opening, and fired, and I saw him go down, and I started coming in on him, and I saw him get up again, and I threw another shot. The first one went through the neck. The second one, it went through the back a little bit, hit the spine, and it dropped him right there.
Well, Sal, you got him all dressed and tagged. Why don't we try and drag him a couple hundred yards up the hill here to that old logging trail, and then maybe I can get in with the four-wheeler.
Good enough.
Because we'll never drag him up that hill, I'll tell you that. As you can see, we've got 2 so far out of 5, and it's only about 1 o'clock. So we're well ahead of the Pennsylvania average on killing deer. The reason for that is not only good hunters and hard hunting, but habitat. What we have here is a lot of farmland surrounded by this pocket of mountains. And as you can see, the habitat right out in here is awful thick. And when the shooting starts, the deer come out of the farmland and run into this stuff and to get cover, and that's the kind of stuff that we hunt. It's awful thick and rough hunting, as you saw before, but the habitat is good, and the deer have to come there to hide, and that creates us being in the right place at the right time. Here we are, the second day in Pennsylvania, the second day of deer hunting. As you can see, the weather today is quite different than it was yesterday, and that's what you can have in Pennsylvania when you have a late season like we have. One day it can be nice, one day it can be snow and sleet like we're having today. What we're going to be doing today is driving. The one of us that have gotten their deer will be the drivers, and the ones that haven't will be posted and sitting. In Pennsylvania, there's about 1 million hunters take to the field the first day, and it's more of a social event than it is just the fact that everybody wants to go out and hunt. Most everyone hunts in camps like we have right here. We've been doing this, my father and I anyway, for 28 years. We've been hunting in camps of one place or another. This is our camp, and for about the last 5 years, this is a group that's been hunting with us. Over here on my right, you have Andy Fagley. Here we have Tom Fagley, his father. Here we have Salvatore Patera. Here we have, over here to my left, my father, Ed Pocius. And over here we have Ken Wilson, who's visiting us from California. What we're going to be doing now is going out, it's midday, and we've had our lunch. We're going to be going out and making a drive. And Tom and Andy and my father are going to go down over here at the bottom of this batch of scrub oaks, and they're going to post in a line with my father on the end and his son and Andy in the middle, and Tom on the other end by the pond. And what we're going to do is come down through these pine trees and scrub oaks on this side and hopefully drive a buck to one of them.
A typical tree stand on privately owned property in the north is one built by nailing ladder steps and a platform between two or more trees. Here Tom demonstrates a safe technique for getting his rifle to his platform. He has tied a rope to a completely unloaded rifle, and he then pulls it up before loading. This is a typical view from a Pennsylvania tree stand, where trees probably stop more bullets than do deer. And this is not an uncommon view when hunting public land on opening day. With over 1 million hunters confirmed by the Game Department to be in the field on the opening day of the Pennsylvania deer season, the wearing of a lot of hunter orange and cognizance of safety become paramount in importance. In this example, Tom would choose to change locations rather than risk shooting in such close proximity to other hunters.
Here's another one of the buck rubs right along this trail. And right down in here to my left are several more. This whole trail is just completely lined with buck rubs as they travel. It's got to be more than one buck doing it. Another way that we can tell that deer have been using the area is by the tracks. Yesterday, with the dry cover and the leaves the way they were, it was almost impossible to see tracks in the leaves unless the leaves were just disturbed. But here today, with this little bit of snow and ice on the ground, you'll be able to see tracks real well, and also you'll be able to see the droppings on top of the snow, and you'll know whether they're fresh or not. As you can see by these tracks here, some deer have just a few minutes ago come out of this ravine. It's so noisy and crunchy today with this ice and snow that one person just walking around is not really going to accomplish too much except to chase deer out in any direction. That's why on a day like today, when it's noisy, or a day like yesterday, the only way you're going to see deer other than their natural movement is on an organized drive where you're on a stand or in a tree stand and you're waiting for someone to move the deer towards you. Just haphazardly running through the forest, your chances of catching a deer that way are really slim. As you see by this print right here, by the size of the print and the heavy markings of the dew claws in the back and the way this one has sunk in compared to the others, this is most likely a print of a buck deer. But the only way that you can really tell whether it's a buck or a doe is follow this print in this snow and either see the deer or find a spot where it's urinated. If it's a doe, you'll find that it's urinated to the back of its two set tracks and it'll be in one steady stream or one little hole. If it's a buck, it'll be in front of his back feet set tracks and it'll be sprinkled just haphazardly in the snow. Ken, what I'd like you to do is go in the woods right here. And when we make this drive, Sal is about 300 yards up to our back, and I'll be about 200 yards down here to the front. And what I want you to do is give us about a 15-minute head start. And that way, when we're doing a silent drive like we're doing, sometimes the deer have a tendency to circle around us, and that way you'll be in behind and you'll be in position to hopefully get a shot.
Is that your shot?
Yeah, got a three-pointer. Not mine. Our three kids down here were chasing them for about an hour and a half. They said they were pretty relieved when I said, "It's all yours." Kid says, "It's my first deer, mister. Thanks a lot." You know, if you ever shoot at a deer and it wanders off, somebody else shoots it and puts it down, that's their deer. It's not according to law or anything else. It's just Pennsylvania tradition. So it would be up to you if you want to give it to the other person or not. And, you know, that works the other way around as well. So these kids were pretty happy. I think they knew that. So told them to enjoy his venison. You see anything on that drive?
Saw about 5 doe go up the hill there.
See the fox?
Yeah.
Did he? Yeah, he went pretty fast. Tell you what, you might as well stay here because this is where I got my buck 2 years ago. This is where Wayne got his down there last year. as good as anyone. You wait here till dark. I'm going to go up in the thick stuff up there in those oak saplings, and I'll sit there. I'll pick you up on the way back. We'll go back and have supper, okay?
All right.
Okay, good luck.
Good.
That's the fawn. That's the fawns with the spots. It's amazing that has spots here. That was the same fawn that I saw yesterday. It's kind of strange in Pennsylvania for a fawn to have spots this long. It was probably one that was from a late mating and a late birth. So unless it starts growing its winter coat in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be in trouble when wintertime comes. The spots all along the back, just starting to get its winter pelage up along the neck and head. I saw it yesterday and it kind of acts dumb. I hope it makes out okay.
I heard a gunshot.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Ken Wilson.
Greg Reinbach. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Greg. Boy, that's a dandy.
Yeah, got him coming off the ridge.
Whew.
Nice buck.
Beautiful buck. That's heavy.
He was coming down off the ridge.
Whereabouts?
He was back. It's about 150 yards back. Coming down off.
Were you still hunting, or?
Yeah, I was still hunting.
And were you just like, what, waiting a few minutes and looking and moving up? Or
Yeah, I was walking about 10 steps at a time, and then I'd stop, wait about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I just caught a glimpse of him. I just saw the antlers just moving. And he was feeding along.
Well, that's what I'm...
squeeze on him, and that was it.
That's what I'm looking for. What kind of rifle are you using?
Using a 300 Weatherby.
Yeah.
Fiber mark.
How's the kick on that?
The kick's not bad. I got it magna ported.
Yeah.
And that helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Fiberglass.
And you never feel the recoil when you're shooting at a buck anyway.
Well, listen, I'll let you field dress and I'll move on and see if I can't find one.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Now the work to do.
Yeah.
After having been unsuccessful in still hunting, driving, and stand hunting by the base of trees for the first 2.5 days, Ken has resolved to sit in this tree stand from late morning until the end of shooting light. This stand was erected before the deer season by an area with recently used deer trails, plus a scrape and several rubs. It is also surrounded by a few small open areas where there is more feed than in the thicker cover.
What I plan to do is to look at this side of the hill for about a half an hour at a time and just listen for noise behind me. And then after about a half an hour, I'm going to turn around and face their way. That way I'll be able to see 180 degrees. But if I move around and try to get 360, I'm going to end up having movement and scaring the deer away. Here comes some does. Maybe a buck in with them too. All I see is does. Here comes a good buck. This buck is real wide. But I want to see all the points. And he doesn't have any brow tines. He's a 6-pointer. He's probably a 20-inch 6-pointer, but no brow tines and just a 6-pointer. So it's a hell of a deer, 20-inch spread. I'm gonna pass him up. This is my idea of fun, spending the whole day in a tree stand.
see antlers. He's a 10-pointer. I'm going to go ahead and try to take him. Well, he's hard hit. He is hard hit. What I'm going to do is unload and take my time. There's no use rushing down this tree stand. And I'm going to treat him more like a bow hunter. And I think I'll let him stiffen up a little bit because it's going to take me a couple minutes to get down here. But what I'm first going to do is carefully mark my spot. There's a big tree there with kind of a stump to the side. I'm going to walk up, and that's the last point I saw him. Put those two in. One for my ammo holder. I'm gonna go ahead and chamber the round because if the buck's still alive, I'll get a jump shot at him. Well, this is that big tree where I was at, lined up with the stand, so he should have been hit around here somewhere. Here's some blood. So he should be around here. There he is. Boy, what a deer.
Deer habitat in the north can, of course, vary considerably. From heavily treed areas with limited visibility to farm country with a different type of limited visibility to the open woods that Wayne will now hunt.
This area is quite different than it was in Bradford County where we were in the opening day of deer season. In Bradford, there was a real cold snap in and no snow the first day, and the leaves were like walking on eggshells. They were real noisy and frozen. The second day, we had snow and sleet, and it was freezing rain also, and it froze a crust over the snow and the surface, and when you walked on that, that again was walking and very noisy. Now here today, the temperature is above 30 degrees or right around 32 degrees, and it's not really that cold. And the leaves, it had been about 3 days of rain, and the leaves here are just sopping wet. And what it enables us to do is just walk and sneak along and not anything hear us. And as long as we're hunting against the wind and the wind is blowing our scent to our rear, we can really almost get up and see some game. It's pretty open here. And what we're doing is we're just sneaking up to an area. We're glassing maybe 100 yards out and seeing if we can find any sight or sign or anything of a deer, and hopefully try and sneak up on a buck. And then if we don't see anything, then we move up maybe another 50, 60 yards and stop by a tree and do the same thing again. And we'll just continue on doing that until hopefully we spot a buck or we kick one up that's been laying down or something in that manner. And then maybe we'll get a shot based on the openness of this territory.
There is a high rack attached to a big-bodied deer.
I aimed right on the shoulder, so I believe he's down right up in here. In fact, when I shot and hit him, it looked like he flinched and just went right over the rise and fell, so we should find him laying just up here. Look at that buck. That is a heck of a buck. Really a nice buck, nice heavy 10-pointer. We were still hunting today because of the quietness of the leaves. It's sort of a semi-drizzle, and the woods is real quiet and sort of open here. And what we were doing was slipping along, hoping to catch a buck. And we came up on this real nice big buck. See the tines, real nice heavy horned 10-point. One is broken here. As you can see, this buck is in full rut. His neck is swollen, and he's got his body weight, as you can feel in his backbone here. He's probably had about a 30% loss of body weight because he probably hasn't been eating too much. He's been doing nothing but chasing does. Also, this one point that would have made him a perfect 10-pointer has just been recently broken off, and you can see a whole lot of tree and other items scraped on his horns here where he's been rubbing trees and doing some mock fighting. But this horn here that's been torn off either hitting a tree or fighting with another buck has just been recently done in the last few days. Okay, judging the trophy quality and the size of the antlers of an animal when you're looking at it, first you have to be a pretty good judge of the body weight of the animal and where you're hunting. You can tell by the size of this deer, and the deer in this area are a good 180 to 200 pound deer. And that means that their heads and their ears and all that stuff will be a lot bigger. This buck, as you can see by his ear length, his ear spread is about 18 inches, which makes him exactly about an 18-inch wide buck. And when we looked at him through the binoculars to check out and see what his size was, we realized right away when he looked at us that his rack was only about 18 inches wide. But because of these long, heavy tines, I mean, it just made him a perfect 10-pointer, regardless of whether he was 18 or 20 inches. The 2 inches and the 20, making it a 20-inch buck didn't really mean that much when you're able to get a 10-pointer with tines like that.
Whether you hunt in the north or the south, whether you hunt with bow or with rifle, whether you hunt for meat or a big wall hanger, your luck will be increased on your next hunt if you are prepared.